So thank you very much, gentlemen, for making for this second virtual meeting of the Solar Power for Houses and Businesses Policy Advisory Committee. Last time when we had this meeting, we agreed that we come up with terms of reference, and you gave me the mandate of coming up with a draft, which I did, and I circulated to all of us. And also during the agenda today, I circulated the same, but now in Word format. And what I would like to bring to your attention, only NUPEA responded or gave us a very useful feedback and shared both the Energy Act and the Energy Policy, Energy Act of 2019, Energy Policy of 2018, and also gave some observations. So going forward, I would like to let us know that what will be agreed today in the roles stroke responsibilities is what will be in the letter appointing all of us to this Solar Power for Houses and Businesses Advisory Committee. So in conclusion, the terms of reference, there'll be one or two, depending on how this meeting concludes. That is, one is what the NUPEA suggested, and two is what we had before, which Strathmore had very well elaborated. And then out of those two objectives, or if we agree on one of those objectives, we shall have now, just like in a thesis, the sub reasons, or the minor ones, which stem from the main one. The main one, let's say if it is we do local content, then we can have specific ones on the local content. So thank you very much. Who would like to take the microphone? You are four of you, so one of you will take the floor. Good morning. One of you should take the floor.
I could start here. Thank you so much again for the opportunity today. I must apologize. I did not have give some time to read and to give our feedback. And my request also would be that after this meeting, you can still allow us some time, maybe until the end of day tomorrow, just to elaborate more on the TOR. But I see that the line you've taken is local content. This is what we discussed last week, and really that could come from either capacity for personnel or in equipment. So that will be my comment now. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Strathmore. University, NUPEA or Kildi?
Thank you so much, Chair. I think mine maybe just to still stress the fact that I gave some information on the information that's available currently from the Ministry of Energy. On the
could you talk louder, please?
Oh, I'm not loud enough.
I can hear you, but my other colleagues are not able to hear you.
Humphreys, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, me, I'm getting you.
Geoffrey?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I was just making my comments on the terms of reference as depicted by Daktari, and I gave my comments because I happen to be a stakeholder in this Energy Act and the Energy Policy. And one of the requirements was on the capping of the megawatts for net metering. And I did state that this has already been catered for in the New Energy Act under net metering. And we also have another option for renewable energy, which is called the feed-in tariff. The feed-in tariff normally starts from anything more than 500 megawatts. Then the investors are allowed to be able to get into that kind of platform to generate and connect to the grid. But for the net metering, they are provided for anything under 1 megawatt. Then the investors are able to generate and sell to the off-taker. So that was my contribution towards that terms of reference. But the problem that we have currently is even on the regulation, because we have been trying now to develop the regulation to operationalize the Act. And there are several regulations, and one of them is the net metering. And even as we do that, we are still finding a lot of challenges, even on the capacity to be able to inject into the system because of the technical challenges that can be experienced by the off-taker. For example, if you had, like example, 2 net metering adjacent to each other, and you're being told that they are able to inject, let's say, a 1 megawatt, and they're injecting into the same network whose capacity might not be able to accommodate that kind of megawatt. So there are some technical issues that are still being coupled with, so that it will be a success. For the case of the local content, that is a very super one, which really in terms of effectiveness, in terms of efficiency, so that then as the other businessmen take this particular challenge to be able to develop this net metering and the facilities, then they are able to get it at the low cost and quality of these materials that they want to use to supply the solar energy. Thank you so much. Chairman, I've finished. Chairman is muted. The chair is muted.
Oh, he's muted. Me, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to inform all of us that when eventually the letter for terms of reference will be made, the appointment letter will be made, usually NACOSTI does not chair. NACOSTI, we are like the secretariat. We take note of all what is discussed. So the chair will be one of yourselves. But since we are doing a virtual meeting and I'm the host, so I'm playing that role. But normally that is not how our minutes will be. Our minutes will have one of you as chair, and then us will be the secretariat. But thank you so much for what you've explained to everybody in UPEA. I think it is, if there's any clarification anyone needs, it's better you say it. Could we have some rejoinders from University and KISD, please? University of Nairobi, because Strathmore has spoken. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, Kiridi, go ahead.
Yeah, me, I wanted to say on the part of Kiridi, you are hearing me? Yeah, on the part of Kiridi, we actually enjoying the solar project, whereby we are looking at how we can use the solar and on our put solar on our roofs at the 3D campus. We are putting up a big laboratory in South B, and that one has got the solar components. But in South C, we are in the discussions to see how we can put solar panels so that we are able to use pay less bills for our general electricity uptake. And we would like to collaborate or work in a way whereby things follow like the Strathmore University situation. And we have already had some talks with our research scientists, and they will come up with a document which we will share with the other stakeholders. So for the time being, that's what I can say. Thank you.
So University of Nairobi.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ray, and good morning, all of us. And I think basically I should say we are taking the right direction in terms of solar energy, and more particularly the focus that we tend to have. I apologize, I didn't send my comments because I was still reading and working on the document. And I'll request maybe for 1 or 2 more days, then I send my comment on that. I'm not complete yet. I apologize for that.
So thank you very much, all of us. I just want to repeat again, the letter of appointment, what Engineer Ohanga commented on, that is the roles and stroke responsibilities. That is what will be contained in the appointment letter. So Nakosti's wish was that by the end of today's meeting, we've agreed on that particular bit, that is the roles stroke responsibilities. Anything else, we can take the 1, 2, even 1 week, 1, 2 days, or even 1 week to continue panel beating. But the roles and responsibilities, it will be our desire that we get through that so that we can do the appointment letters. And then going forward, we can know we are all duly appointed to continue with this activity or this work we are doing. So I would like to get a rejoinder from all of us if that is doable in the next 45 minutes or less. Thank you very much. I would like feedback. Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I would like feedback on if we can do the roles, stroke responsibilities, and be done with them by the time we end this meeting, please.
Okay, here, Geoffrey here from Strathmore. So you talk about number 4 in the TUR, so roles and responsibilities.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so when I read them, Chair, I find that they are in order. They are quite general enough to allow, I guess, us to be flexible as we implement the discussions. So I have no objection to the roles and responsibilities. I don't know if we all feel whether we need to be more specific in terms of time required or effort required, or we want to leave it to define once we already want to start the work. But I find them general enough to allow us flexibility.
It's like I get what the chair wants from us. Maybe I stand to be corrected, but maybe what the chair wants from us is to be specific on which role each of the participants will be able to plug in. For example, the University of Nairobi and maybe universities can focus on research and training because that is their core responsibility, and probably some bit of practical application. I think maybe the chair wants specific roles for each of the categories of participants, I think. Chair, can you comment?
Yes, Daktari. Usually when we do terms of reference, we shall have, let's say, 1 or 2 general. So going back to our discussion last week, what came out as 2 general ones was, 1 was to do with the business or the entrepreneurship part, and 2 was to do with the local content. Now, following feedback from NUPEA, NUPEA feels we should deal with the general one being the local content. So if I use that as an example, if we took local content as our general term of reference, under that general term of reference of local content, we can generate 3, 4, 5 specific objectives or specific roles, which stream from the general one of local content. And that should be all encompassing, because we are doing this thing for the country. We're not doing it for example, University of Nairobi or the energy sector, that is NUPEA. We are doing it for the country, but we want input from University of Nairobi and we want input from energy, that is NUPEA. Is that clearer? Thank you very much. I've finished.
Yes, thank you, sir. I think that is very clear.
So that is NUPEA. It's clear to NUPEA. We do a general one, and then under that general one, specific ones. If we have 2 general ones, we have again, we'll have 2 parallel specific ones, one for each.
Yes.
That is okay, Chief.
Then can we agree to go for the local content as a focus, the main objective?
I have no issue with that, but as you heard from NUPEA, the necessary legislations, that is the way government works. We normally have an overriding act of parliament, like now the Energy Act. Now, under the Energy Act, there will be several subsidiary legislations. Now, what I heard from NUPEA is that these subsidiary legislations, they have not yet been done. So there's nothing which stops this advisory committee from advising on the second one, which we had come up with about the entrepreneurship part of it. And it was very well elaborated by Strathmore. You remember Strathmore explaining their journey. And again, I would for the benefit of Kirdi, I would welcome if Strathmore could go through their journey from when they started with 1 solar panel until they filled all the Nairobi West campus with solar panels. And as we are speaking now, they are selling to Kenya Power. Strathmore, please. I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, Bwana. So just for the benefit of colleagues who were not here last week, I explained our journey from 2012 to 2014 in trying to implement a solar project in our roofs there at the university. As you saw, our university is quite active during the day. So our peak power consumption is during the day. Overnight, we are very low on consumption. So it's a very good fit for solar, as well as a sufficient space on the roofs to put on solar panels. But our biggest challenge became regulatory hurdles, because universities close every so often, even over the weekend. Strathmore is like a day university. There is no overnight. There are no borders. So over the weekend, there's just no demand is very low. Similarly during holidays. So we had to figure out what do we do with the excess power during those periods when there's no demand. And we tried to look at the net metering option. It wasn't there then. It's still not there now. The only option that was there for us was feed-in tariff, which, as the colleague from NUPEA said, is available for plants above 500 kilowatt. So for us, then we had to go to do a plant which is 100 kilowatt in order to satisfy that threshold. However, those feed-in tariffs are made for power plants which are for save the grid. They're not made for self-consumption or captive use plants like the one we have in our campus. So they are very strenuous in terms of trying to comply with the law. The permits are huge and they are very costly. They are very costly in terms of equipment and paperwork and time also. So we went through the journey anyway, and it took us a couple of years. I would say 3 years to even sign the PPA. We implemented our project and finished before we could sign the PPA. It took so long to sign it, and once we signed it also, to comply with the laws in that PPA was still a process. And so it really means that for plants which are used for own use, the easiest option would be net metering. And therefore, I really agree with the idea that we should provide input the committee, the Ministry of Energy Committee, which is now trying to develop net metering policies. I hope and pray that our work can be presented to that committee so that we can give our input to that committee. I also know that there's a local content requirement in the Energy Act of 2019, which I hope and pray that we can also develop guidelines and policies which we can present to that committee set up by the Ministry of Energy. In conclusion, therefore, so in Strathmore, we have now been selling power to the grid for over 5 years. We still have challenges with Kenya Power in terms of getting paid and whether we are and a number of issues here and there. During the course of our committee, we'll be very happy to welcome you to our university, and we can walk through our plan there and just take you through more the challenges we have had and our. I'm finished. Thank you.
Chair, can I say something?
Thank you very much, Strathmore. So I think all of us, we are now at par. We have the same knowledge. So is it possible we agree on at most 2 general topics? At most, but we can also settle on one. And then once we've agreed on that one or those 2, we generate the specifics for that one or those 2. May I have your input, please?
Chair, can I say something?
Please, yes.
I just wanted to inform the committee that the regulations have been done. I think they are just waiting enactment by the Parliament, all the 28 regulations for the Energy Act to operationalize the Energy Act, where net metering is one of them. I think that was completed in February. So it's just going to the next stage. I think where we'll have also some stakeholder involvement. I think that's the place where now, if we have any information to add, we can get involved there. But all the regulations now to operationalize the Act have also been developed. I think they're just waiting now for the enactment.
So thank you very much, Energy. We've heard from them, and we are welcoming Kenjen. Kenjen are now joining us. So does anybody want to give a rejoinder to what I said and what Energy has said now? That is Nupea. Please, I'm finished. Good morning.
I don't know whether I can comment something small.
You can.
Before we go further. I wanted to say this, like what I've known with the selling power to the grid, the stringent measures, I don't know whether they were put in by Kenya Power themselves or it is the government regulation. It makes it very hard for SMEs or anybody to sell power to the grid. And the penalties also are so high. In case you are not able to supply that power, you might be grounded to halt. The major issue I would like us to, when we are moving ahead, is to see how we can iron out that area whereby it is very difficult to be able to mitigate when you are not able to meet the power agreement which you had signed. This is probably maybe government or somebody who has made it so difficult. We need to iron out that very, very immediately, because once we go into this and we are having solar power going to the grid, and in case there is a problem, those SMEs or those entities might get into a big problem when they are not able to supply that power. Just like Mumias is having problem now with the debts with the Kenya Power because they cannot give the electricity they promised. Yeah, that is my
Online
area.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Kirti. Could we have something from our University of Nairobi, please?
Yes, yes,
Thank
yes. Thank you, Chair. And I agree with my colleagues, and I think one of the things we need to look into is about policing and the regulations that are in place. I think one of the our core duties or objectives should be to look at the current prevailing, whether adopted or about to be adopted policies, and how it is enhancing or not enhancing the adaptation of a generation of especially power generation for the connection to the grid. We can look at the gray areas or the challenges that that are there that can be handled or focused on, so that more and more people adopt installation of solar panels on their roofs for selling to Kenya Power or connection to the grid. The second thing about enterprises, I would also suggest we can also focus on the main challenges that the installations and the people generally outside there are facing. And we also look and explore options which we can recommend to the government on what they can be able to do to have a wider adoption of the solar technology. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, thank you very much, University of Nairobi. So the feeling I get is that we should have two main objectives or two main roles. And out of those two main roles, we can cater for specifics under each. Is NUPEA seeing that when you hear University of Nairobi, Strathmore, and Kirdi? They still because if you go to the 4 bullets I had put as our roles and responsibilities, I had put, for example, fostering collaborations. So fostering collaboration can, for example, now we have Strathmore. They have done what they've already done. University of Nairobi, they are doing their baby steps. So if this fostering collaboration can have a scenario where both the two entities, the University of Nairobi and Strathmore, can collude in the name of collaboration and see how to, for example, fulfill the conditions of Kenya Power or share how the power purchase agreement was done between Strathmore and Kenya Power, so the University of Nairobi so as not to suffer from what Strathmore may have suffered while they reach where they are. They face fewer obstacles. So NUPEA, do you see we need two objectives, main ones, and then we can have specifics under each? Thank you very much.
What I want to say is that it is true that getting into power purchase agreement with capacities lower than 1 megawatt was still a struggle, because the investor was required to meet very stringent grid code. In Kenya and in the world, the utilities operate using grid codes, and there are several requirements of the grid code. And one of those requirements is harmonics, issues to do with frequency, issues to do with the regulation of power. So if you are getting into that agreement under the feed-in tariff, then the investor was required to meet those particular requirements, the requirement followed by any grid operator. And this is especially for the safety of the system and the safety of the public. And because of that, the net metering option was brought on board. Now, the net metering option has no those stringent requirements at all. I think it's unfortunate that Strathmore had to go through the feed-in tariff, but that has been cured through the net metering, which does not have those requirements. And I think many a times it is because of the stability of the system that makes it difficult for even the utilities to be able to accommodate some of the intermittent supply. But I think under the net metering, I think that has now been cured completely in terms of those requirements, which are now being removed. You don't require them under net metering. But the fostering of collaboration is a very good thing between entities that already implemented it, because I know there will be so many other entities that would like to do the same. That fostering collaboration will ensure that they do it first time, they get it right first time. Finished, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nupea. And then still, if you go to the Act, for example, those of us, and I must thank Nupea for sharing the Energy Act of 2019. The very opening of the Act, that is after the main statement and then the interpretations of whatever words are there. If you go to the very first part, it vests the office of the Cabinet Secretary of Energy with a number of issues spelled out in the Act very clearly. Now, if I was to just pick, on one, I'm talking of part 2, the energy policy and integrated energy plan.
Maybe Ambre can mute his microphone. Ambre can mute his microphone.
Yeah, Kirdi, you mute your microphone. Yeah, thank you very much. So I was saying, if you go to the Energy Act and you look at the part 2, which is energy policy and integrated energy plan, the Cabinet Secretary has been vested with a number of issues. If I may just pick one of them, that is 4.2. Within 3 months after the end of each financial year, the Cabinet Secretary shall prepare and publish a report on the implementation of the National Energy Policy. If I just pick on that one, for example, and taking into cognizance that this Energy Act came into being in March 2019, actually it commenced in March 2019. And I asked my colleagues, both in the university, Kirdi and Energy, have any of us seen this published report on the implementation of the National Energy Policy? I'm putting a question to yourselves. Thank you.
Chairman, good morning.
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm just thinking a little bit differently. Something that will also make this committee a bit different and add more value to what is happening in the sector. And if you look at, if you want to launch a product, one of the things companies do is market development. But in the power sector, we have totally ignored the question of the question of marketing development. So we expect everybody to sign a PPA with Kenya Power, right? We have companies that are coming to give captive power to the industry, but the question of marketing development, where will this product go? Who will use it? That has been ignored to some extent. And I'm thinking that's one of the areas that we have to keep an eye on and try to make a difference in the approach or even on the policy. And I'll use a good example, for instance. Recently, we had the Cabinet Secretary of Health say there's equipment in the hospitals that cannot be used because we don't have three-phase connection. That's a simple thing that should have been seen in advance, and a very three-phase connection that would have boosted the demand. And that is where now our product will get the market. I'm just thinking roundly, I don't have a specific approach to that, that yes, one of the some items we shouldn't be looking at is how our market development is taking shape. What are the new industries coming? What's the Minister of Industrialization doing? What's the Minister of Agriculture doing to bring this agro-processing? So we have an idea of what new, of an idea of how, of which new customers are about to come in and how much in demand will these people get. And I'm saying this very carefully, knowing we have a least cost power development committee that does that work. But I'm saying we need to go on deeper now and even have some insider, some interventions for how we develop the market for this product. I'm just thinking loud, Chairman, for you guys to think through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenjen, for your input. And that also, your input actually strengthens the idea of having two main roles for this committee. That is the role of local content and then the role of entrepreneurship. And what you just said, Kenjen, would fall as one of the specifics in entrepreneurship, isn't it? So, or would it be under local content? I would like to hear you say what you just said, where it would fall in. Thank you.
I think it shouldn't be under entrepreneurship because that is where the market will be created. So I'll actually put it under entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much, Kenjen. Could we have more rejoinders?
Yes, and also you need to move a little bit further, and for KIRIDI purposes in terms of research, we say that we need to find out what incentives are required to help these stakeholders or SMEs be able to generate or to be able to put on solar electricity. Because a lot of SMEs start, but after some time, they stop. They are not sustainable. So we need to find out what are the real incentives which are required to make them sustainable. Thank you. In terms of research, that is.
So, KIRIDI, that would fall under local content or entrepreneurship?
That will be entrepreneurship.
I would beg to differ.
Yes.
Because if you, for example, if I use, there's a time KIRIDI came up with biogas. And yes, the first biogas demonstration was at the Kichinjio in Dagoretti. And yes, when I visited it with KIRIDI staff, and UNDP was also involved, I was very surprised to find that most of the materials which had been used were from an entity in Germany. So UNDP had brought a biodigester from Germany. But I can inform all of us here, one of our students from University of Nairobi, actually, after he graduated and with our dire scenario of people not getting jobs after graduation, what our engineering student did, he started doing biogas. If you have 2 cows or more, he does biogas for you. And actually, other than the tarpaulin which traps the gas, everything else is Kenyan made, including the personnel who install these biogases. So with all due respect to KIRIDI, I would prefer if you concentrated more on local content with what you have just submitted. I would prefer if it fell under local content and not entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, Chair.
Please continue.
I just wanted to add some voice on what my colleague from Kenyan has said. Actually, we are experiencing a lot of something called the demand risk. We have the power, but you're wondering what to do with that power. And therefore, if this policy can really stress on some innovative strategies in terms of industrial development that can really take off the power that we are now encouraging people to generate, that would be a policy that will actually go a long way in assisting the industry. I can tell you, if you look at the least cost power development plan and some of the projects that are coming on board, there's a lot of commitment on generation in the next 5-10 years. And if you look at the demand, the rate at which the demand is growing, it's a worrying trend, because so much was promised in the Vision 2030, and a lot of it has not taken place. And therefore, you find that you have supply, but you're not looking at the demand aspect. So if you have policies that can be able to address the uptake of this power that we want to encourage investors to produce, that will go a long way in improving even our operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that would fall under entrepreneurship or local content.
That would be entrepreneurship, actually.
Thank you very
much. So I agree with the comments made by the colleagues that demand is really or market development is the main issue. And if we could also not focus on the big industries, but focus on Juakali industries and mechanization of small industries so that they can demand more power, that would, I guess, go very well with what the government is also trying to do. So if you are looking at the demand side, my comment would be to focus on the smaller industries and try and help them to find ways to consume more power or to automate their operations in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that would fall under entrepreneurship.
Yes, 100% yes.
So do we have any more feed-ins? Because we have another 15 minutes to go. You remember I had brought to your attention the Energy Act. The Energy Act of 2019 is excellent, but most of what is there, and if I just take again part 2, if I take part 2, this is the energy policy and integrated energy plan. For example, part 2.5 in bracket 1, the cabinet secretary shall, in consultation with the relevant stakeholders, develop, publish, and review energy plans in respect of coal, renewable energy, and electricity so as to ensure delivery of reliable energy services at least cost. So if I take that, and then I come back to us here in this advisory committee, and we were, let's say, privileged to consult with the cabinet secretary as relevant stakeholders. What can we say we've done to ensure delivery of reliable energy services at least cost coming from solar, so that it is in tandem with the current energy plans? I would like to hear from you. Thank you.
I don't know whether I can just add some comments. Hello?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, now, I remember when we were looking at the general energy consumption and the costs for Kenya, and we were looking at geothermal, and it was actually, came out very clearly that solar will be very expensive. It came out very clearly about some time back when we were looking at the cost of all these energies, where even we were including nuclear. Solar was coming out to be very high out of the graph. Now, if we have this situation where the expense is way high, then it will be very difficult to convince even the government that we should advise on more solar because of the expense. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirdi. Universities, especially University of Nairobi, can you weigh in, please?
Thank you, Chair. And I think the cost of solar right now is much, much lower than it was a few years ago. And the cost of the solar is really going down. And the on-grid connection systems tend to be even, I should say, cheaper, because the main component there is just the inverter, which of course, depending on the size of the system, can be a bit expensive. But when we connect to the grid, then we eliminate the issue of the batteries, which is the main and expensive component, and also sensitive, especially when we come to standalone systems. So I would say greatly that solar is becoming more competitive with the electric grid, and its reliability is comparatively much better than it was a few years ago. And so I think I can say that we need to encourage more solar adoption. And the good thing is that it can always be upscaled. One can do according to their budget, and then it is upscaled with the time to reach the optimum with the time. So I think the option is open, and it's possible to go that way. And I think we need to look at the positives for solar and the way it can be able to impact and change lives. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, University of Nairobi. So what you've just said about eliminating inverters, so by connecting to the grid, would that fall into entrepreneurship or local content?
I think it's entrepreneurship, but it's eliminating batteries, not inverters. Eliminating the batteries, because you can have a battery backup grid connect system or batteryless, and the batteryless is a bit cheaper because batteries are very expensive. So we leave the battery systems probably for very big systems or for standalone system, off-grid system where they need the light at night.
Thank you very much, University of Nairobi, for that clarification of batteries and not inverter. Strathmore University and KenGen, could you please weigh in on that, please?
Okay, I could go first here from Strathmore. I can agree with those comments that the cost of solar has come down significantly from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. When we implemented our project, and the cost now, I would say it's about 50% at this point, or slightly lower. So the cost has come down, and maybe part of our scope can always be that we at least provide this information to our stakeholders that solar is not it's affordable and it's reliable to the extent that the sun is out. Also, the other comment on the batteries. Also, batteries are coming down significantly. Similarly, so over the next few years, we may see systems with PV with batteries becoming also cost effective, but we are not yet there unless there is a customer who the grid is very unreliable, like we see mostly in Western Kenya, or there's just no grid, like in off-grid lodges. So also there, solar and batteries become of interest. So there are always scenarios where each technology applies. It's just a clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Strathmore. And what you have said about the cost of batteries coming down, and also, of course, solar coming down, should it be in local content or in entrepreneurship?
So I would say more entrepreneurship in terms of, I would say entrepreneurship, yes.
Thank you very much. KenGen?
Chairman, I think I'm okay. I have no comment.
Chair, can I say something on the cost?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I want to say it is true that the cost of solar is coming down. It used to be 12 US cents dollars, but it has now come to 9 US cents dollars per kilowatt hour. But you realize that is still higher than some options that we have even currently in the grid. Like if you compare to even hydro and geothermal. But I must say that the cost of solar has seen some drastic reduction from 12 US cents to 9 US cents per kilowatt hour. Thank you, Chair. Finished.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nupea. So one very last thing, And this one again is coming from the Energy Act of 2019. So again, in part 2, other than the integrated energy plan, we also have the government obligations. And I would like to hear your comments on this. The government obligations comes in part 2 and 7 in brackets. I will read out 2. So the government obligations in 7.2 says that where the national or county government determines that a supply of energy in any area is necessary, and upon assessment it is established to be commercially inexpedient to provide for the necessary reticulation by any licensee, the cabinet secretary or county executive committee member, as the case may be, may undertake the provision of any such works or provide the funds necessary for the development of such works. So I would like to hear your inputs on that. And when you give your inputs, please state whether they are more in the entrepreneurship or local content. Thank you very much. So who will go first? Will it be KenGen who generate electricity, and this may be a good area where you may do power energy systems which are not on the grid, or the universities, or Kirdi? Thank you.
Maybe I can begin, Chair. Sorry, David, go ahead.
To begin, you can begin. Okay, fine, go on.
Okay, so my interpretation of this, Chair, is the government is encouraging sort of what you call mini grids, solar mini grids in places where probably grid connection would be a challenge and probably it will be economically high. So it's trying to encourage, I think, mini grids, but I think the feasibility study, of course, will determine whether it is really viable or not, because the spreading or the distribution of the mini grid to the nearest villages will be determined by the way the villages are being located. But I think it's a good move. It's sort of giving the counties an autonomy of making decisions to provide energy to their citizens detached from the main government. And so it's telling the county government, yeah, you can also explore options where you can be able to offer energy to your people without us necessarily getting involved. I think so. Thank you, Chair.
Before you go away, University of Nairobi.
Yes, sir.
If you had an opportunity, for example, to go to those remote areas and install solar, would you want local content or entrepreneurship to be in front? And if it is local content, would you train the locals to do the installation?
Actually, I should say it should be both, although sharing different percentages. Maybe entrepreneurship will take maybe 70%, local content will take about 30%. Why? Because once you do the installations with the involvement of the people that can be of help within the area, the people with some technical skills within the area, then you can train them on the basics of managing the system, especially how they can be able to read and interpret any problem without necessarily getting involved in the technical aspect of connection and all that in terms of monitoring the system. You can give them the guidelines of how the system can be maintained healthy and how when there's a problem, they can be able to alert you so that when you communicate to them when you're far away, it's easier for you to identify the problem and see whether you need to send a more experienced technical personnel to the site, or you can just instruct them remotely to see what they can be able to do before take further action. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, KenGen. You have the last word, KenGen.
Chairman, entrepreneurship.
I hear you.
Entrepreneurship. You have just given a good example of the university student who could not get a job and went to Ndumba and digesters. That's the person will come and say, I have a biosystem here, let me put a solar to complement. So where we stand as KenGen, I think entrepreneurship is everything, and we are promoting it through innovation. So for me, in terms of priority, entrepreneurship will naturally drive the local content if policies are clear to support that element. I think that's my contribution on that question. Thank you, Chairman. I think I'm done.
Thank you very much, Kenjen. Is there anybody else who wants to say the very last word? Nupea or Kirdi or Strathmore?
Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, it's okay.
Even me, I'm all right. Me, I've got no problem.
No further comment, please. Thank you.
So I want to thank all of us for making time for this virtual meeting. And what I will do, I will share the recording like I did the last time. And then I will share a smaller, maybe just one page, giving the two objectives.
Yes,
and
morning.
the two objectives,
I was in a meeting which is now ending.
So thank you very much for your time.
It's ending. Even just saying thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I wish you a great weekend.
Now just go ahead and talk because everybody is closed now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. He told me he will, I think I've not checked the email yet. Yeah, but I think he must have.